But the reality of the matter is Canadians have a vested interest financially, ethically, as a social justice to have that accountability in this chamber, and there's no better place to do so.
I want to thank the honourable member. He will have another 5 minutes. He will have another 5 minutes or 4 minutes and 49 seconds once debate continues. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de Repentigny.
The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly is unanimous. Health falls within the exclusive jurisdiction of Quebec, and transfer payments must be maintained at 6% with no conditions. But the government has chosen the worst of all options. It's chosen to unilaterally impose conservative cuts with NDP conditions. It's time for the Liberals to listen to reason. By refusing to maintain health transfers at 6%, the quality of care provided to patients in Quebec will be affected, Mr. Speaker. The government is targeting patients in Quebec, and that's why I invite all Quebecers in the Liberal caucus to take a stand. Are they in favour or against the Quebec National Assembly's desire, expressed this morning, to have the funds required for our healthcare system? The Bloc Québécois has chosen Quebec's sick people. What about the Liberals? The honourable member for Ville-Marie.
Today, over 31,000 fans gathered at the Big O to thank and bid farewell to the Expos. After 36 years and nearly 3,000 games, MLB in Montreal came to an end on the same day that the 1994 Expos were recognized as the best team in baseball. From Jerry Park to the Big O, Rusty Stop to Vlad Guerrero, and sadly, Blue Monday, the Expos are an unforgettable part of Montreal and Canada.
I'm sure that there are Canadians in the country who still remember that last baseball game and wear an Expos cap with pride and with tears in their eyes. I urge them to join me in wishing for and hoping for a return of baseball to Montreal. I hope one day I'll be able to take my children to see the Expos beat none other than the Blue Jays. Let's go Expos.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to express my gratitude to the seniors in my riding and to those throughout Canada. As you know, October 1st is the National Seniors Day, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge the great contributions of seniors across the nation. The current economic downturn and the higher taxes from this government make seniors more vulnerable. Also, baby boomers have joined the ranks of seniors, posing challenge to ensure their needs are met. The last decade has seen changes in the Canadian society, from homegrown terrorism to large influx of refugees. This may cause some concerns to seniors, but we must ensure that these concerns are dealt with equality and respect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. John Rothsay.
Mr. Speaker, in 1993, the then Progressive Conservative Party opposite was reduced to 2 members. Today, I rise to pay tribute to one of them, Elsie Wayne, better known as just Elsie. Elsie Fairweather Wayne passed away on August 23rd at the age of 84, surrounded by her loving husband Buzzy and 2 children, Daniel and Stephen. Elsie started in politics, first in 1977 as city councillor, then to mayor in 1984, and finished her career in politics as Member of Parliament for St. John, serving from 1993 till 2004. She loved her greatest little city in the East. Elsie played a pivotal role in shaping the future direction of the Progressive Conservative Party and served briefly as their interim leader. I have many fond memories, especially her later years being such a loyal fan of the St. John Sea Dogs. I did not always agree with what she said, but it was hard not to admire her strength and conviction. She was truly the people's MP, an MP I strive to be every day in St. John Rothsay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
I bring you good news from Nanaimo Ladysmith. Climate action is a win-win for our local economy and our global environment. We're innovating, cutting greenhouse gas emissions while adding well-paying jobs. 2 groups are building affordable housing with energy conservation in Nanaimo. VIU carpentry students dedicated 5,000 hours of work into Habitat for Humanity's new build. And the Nanaimo Aboriginal Centre is building affordable housing using passive design, which uses 80% less energy. This is good news countrywide. Canada's green building industry employs more direct full-time workers than forestry, mining, oil and gas industries combined. November 10, we'll celebrate climate solutions, innovation and job creation at Nanaimo's John Barsby School. 5:30 is the Climate Fair, 7 o'clock the Forum. Please come and add your voice for climate solutions that add green jobs.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand today to recognize a constituent of Etobicoke Lakeshore and my good friend Bob Weeks. Bob Weeks is best known he's known by many for his on-air reporter work and analyst for TSN covering golf and curling, and previously as the editor of Score Golf magazine. Well, today I want to recognize Bob following his induction into the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame in July, a recognition that is well deserved. However, Mr. Speaker, this is nothing new for Mr. Weeks. You see, he's previously been inducted into the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame, the Canadian Curling Hall of Fame, and best of all, the Etobicoke Sports Hall of Fame. I would like to congratulate and recognize Bob for his many contributions and achievements over a diverse career. But with all these halls, Mr. Speaker, I think his next stop is the Hall of Fame of Halls of Fame.
Yes.
The honourable member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, during the Rio Games, Paralympic Games, I was riveted to my computer screen watching the skills demonstrated by 3 athletes from my riding. Through their determination and their perseverance, the Paralympics perfectly embodied the expression, where there's a way, there's a way. Nicole Clermont took 9th place in the 3,000-meter cycling race, but had to drop out of the 72-kilometer race because of a drop, but she was in 3rd place right before dropping out. Guillaume Ouellette, a para-athletics runner from Victoriaville, 4th in the 5,000-meter, and Charles Moreau, a Paralympic cyclist from Victoriaville, double bronze medalist in the 60-kilometer race and the time trial. We lived the excitement through you, and I'm convinced that my colleagues here in the House will join me today in saying congratulations. Bravo. Congratulations to you and all Paralympic athletes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to take this moment to recognize 2 of my constituents who live in Stillwater Creek Retirement Community, each of whom are veterans who proudly served our country. Rear Admiral William Christie was a chief engineer in the Canadian Navy and is currently the oldest living Canadian admiral. He celebrated his 97th birthday on September 21st. I would also like to recognize able-bodied seaman George Melanchuk for this year, who was this year awarded the Legion of Honor from France for his heroism and courage during World War II. He celebrated his 92nd birthday on September 22nd. Mr. Speaker, I invite all members to join me in commending Rear Admiral Christie and able-bodied seaman Melanchuk for their service and dedication to Canada.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, southwest Nova Scotia is having the worst drought we have seen in many years. This summer, a forest fire destroyed 400 hectares of woodland in South Shore St. Margaret's and West Nova, and it raged for days. Not all of my honourable colleagues may know this, but in much of rural Nova Scotia, our firefighters are all volunteers and put in countless hours of training and preparing to keep our forests, families, and communities safe. Volunteers worked around the clock for days, not only battling the fire, but also supporting the firefighters. Volunteers fundraised, collected donations, and made sure our volunteer firefighters were fed and hydrated. Many local businesses continued to pay their employees while they were fighting these fires. The fire was eventually contained, our beloved Ketchimakujik National Park was saved, and nobody was injured. I would like to ask all members of this House to join me in thanking our volunteer fire services and the communities that support them.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, this past week we lost a great Canadian and I lost a great friend and advisor, David Alexander William Cook. I have great memories of my visits with Dave. I remember going into his dealership Farm World and sitting down with he and his sister Marge to discuss farm machinery, trade, grain prices, the situation in Ukraine, and other issues. We always had great discussions, and he would present his ideas with great passion and tenacity. He was a truly gifted salesman, and he could sell and convince like no one else. His dealership was known for flying out parts to customers, and he sold huge volumes of New Holland combines and tractors across the prairies. Every farmer across the prairies knew of Farm World and Dave Cook. He was a big man who had a big heart, who loved his family, his employees and customers, and the Lord. We will miss Dave. I will miss Dave. To his wife Donna, his 5 children, 16 grandchildren, please accept our condolences, but also take comfort in knowing that Dave is in a better place, and remember all the great things that Dave has done. He was truly an exceptional man and an exceptional Canadian.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The honourable member for Whitby.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, it's an ideal time to be a young person. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to join the member for London Fanshawe and the member for Simcoe North at the launch of the EF Young Ambassadors Program, which will send 30 young people to represent Canada at the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge. I invite all members to participate in this program and to nominate students from their ridings.
Speaker, I'm also proud to stand here as one of many in our caucus who are setting up local youth councils in our ridings to hear the priorities of our young people. I therefore encourage the students in Whitby to submit their applications to my office before tomorrow's deadline. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I'm usually sworn to silence by privacy and diplomatic confidentiality. However, today I want to talk about the success of our team. I want to thank the Army of Consular Officers in Canada and abroad. They know how important their job is and work around the clock to assist Canadians. The fruits of their labor are not always made public, but the last few weeks have been a brilliant example. I also want to express my gratitude to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister. Their unequivocal leadership sends a strong message to the world that Canada will never give up on its citizens. I want to thank MPs on all sides for raising consular cases while avoiding tempting partisanship shots. To the families of Canadians stuck abroad, you inspire me with your grace and determination. To my fellow Canadians, I say, please try to avoid getting in trouble when traveling, but know that your government will always have your back.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lille, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to rise in this House to draw members' attention to the fact that Jacques Demers has been inducted into the Quebec Sports Hall of Fame. In keeping with his reputation to overcome all obstacles facing him, Mr. Demers was very keen to be in Terrebonne to accept the honour in person for all Canadians facing difficulties in their families, educational problems, or with their health. Jacques Demers has been, is, and will remain a source of inspiration, pride, and hope. As always, he was beaming, which is typical of someone whose outlook on life is so positive, convinced that no challenge is too big to overcome. I invite all my colleagues to congratulate Jacques and to thank him for the inspiration that he remains, and at the same time to join me in sending him our best wishes for a prompt recovery. Go, Jacques, go.
The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise in the House to remember Shimon Peres, a pillar of Israel's founding generation and one of its most respected statesmen. He gave more than 60 years of his life to better the life of others. Having served as both Prime Minister and President, Shimon Peres worked relentlessly to establish Israel's independence. ayant guidé son pays à travers.
Having led his country through several decisive moments, Mr. Perez was a visionary, and even in the most difficult situations, he remained optimistic, determined to bring together Palestinians and Israelis in a peaceful coexistence.
The Canadian delegation departed for Israel. They carry with them the condolences of this House and indeed all of the country. Shimon Peres was a patriot whose pursuit of lasting peace will live on as a blessing and an inspiration for all future generations. Yehei Zikrano Levatcha. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to rise today in the House to invite everyone to participate in the first ever edition of the Saint-Lucien Cranberry Festival on October 7th and 8th. The program includes visiting a cranberry farm, a farmer's market, performances, games, entertainment, and so on. During the summer, I saw just how dynamic this community was by visiting several cranberry farms during my summer tour of the municipalities in my riding, as I do every summer. And I take this opportunity to congratulate the organizer of this year's event, Mr. David Gauthier, president of the Cranberry Festival, as well as the municipality of Saint-Lucien. Their wonderful initiative will promote development and vitality of the community, and citizen involvement by the people of Saint-Lucien will contribute to the success of this festival. Come and discover our region. Join us at the Saint-Lucien Cranberry Festival. Don't miss out on these activities in the Greater Drummond region.
Mr. Speaker, October 1st, this Saturday, Canadians will celebrate National Seniors Day by taking time to pay tribute to seniors. They're also going to thank local organizations that are helping seniors. For over 32 years, Langley Meals on Wheels has been providing hot, nutritious, affordable meals to Langley seniors. They serve seniors whose lives have changed, making them somewhat dependent on volunteers to help them maintain a healthy lifestyle. Langley Meals on Wheels delivers hot, fresh, homemade cooked meals and provides important friendships for those who may be isolated or being at risk. Providing loving care to our seniors at home, helping them keep their independence, gives them dignity and demonstrates our appreciation for them. Mr. Speaker, this National Seniors Day, I want to acknowledge the incredible work done by the volunteers at Langley Meals on Wheels for their ongoing love and support for seniors. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, as Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister for Youth, I'd like to welcome the first 15 Canadians that have been selected to serve on the Prime Minister's Youth Council. A council, Mr. Speaker, that will represent the diversity of our country and one that will bring a strong voice for youth issues from coast to coast to coast. They were selected, Mr. Speaker, amongst over 13,000 applicants that have been submitted thus far.
This enthusiasm by young people shows that if given the chance, they will take every opportunity to make their voices heard. I have encouraging news for those young people who applied but weren't selected. Their applications will be considered for the second wave of recruitment to the Council, and that will be announced in early 2017.
I extend my congratulations to these incredible young Canadians, and on behalf of this entire House, I welcome them to our nation's capital today.
Welcome.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisgar.
Has a real problem on his hands. He agreed to attend a private invitation-only reception hosted by a huge law firm. Now, this might not be a problem if only that firm didn't do legal work for the Irving family. And it might not be a problem if the lobbying arm of the firm didn't lobby for the Irving family. Mr. Speaker, this is a buffet of conflict of interests. How could the Fisheries Minister agree to be the guest of honor at this exclusive reception?
The Fisheries Minister.
Mr. Speaker, some time ago, I was invited by one of the leading law firms in Atlantic Canada to attend an annual event for the business community in Toronto. It's the same event where Premier Stephen McNeil of Nova Scotia spoke last year. Mr. Speaker, I was looking forward to telling those business leaders about our government's Atlantic growth strategy and how this government is investing in historic ways in Atlantic Canada. That's the purpose of going. And if the honourable member thinks there's something wrong with telling business leaders about what our government's doing in Atlantic Canada, I disagree with her.
Because the Fisheries Minister is also the Prime Minister's point man on litigation involving the government. And his job is to manage all the legal action the government is facing. So, when a huge law firm comes calling to ask him to be the guest of honour at a reception, and they boast and bill him as a trusted advisor of the Prime Minister, there should have been some alarm bells. How did the Fisheries Minister not realize that this is a conflict of interest? Where is his judgment?
Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to tell you where my judgment is. My judgment is when I received that invitation, I asked the Ethics Commissioner for her advice as to whether it was appropriate to attend that event. She confirmed to me in writing it was. The honourable member has significant difficulty understanding that. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we always respect our ethical obligations, but we're not afraid, Mr. Speaker, to tell the whole country about the important work our government's doing in Atlantic Canada, and I'll never apologize for talking about the Atlantic growth strategy with business leaders anywhere in Canada.
I want to remind the honourable member that all members here can understand things. We don't want to question the ability of members to be able to understand things. The honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
Mr. Speaker, here again we have the Liberals defending their actions by saying the rules made me do it. Yeah. How about some good judgment when it comes to conflict? The Minister of Fisheries is in charge of the government's litigation strategy. He's been ordered by the Ethics Commissioner to not have any dealings with the Irvings. Wow. But the law firm hosting this party recently represented J.D. Irving Limited in court. And that same firm is now promoting their access to this minister. If it walks like a conflict of interest, if it talks like a conflict of interest, it is a conflict of interest. Where is this minister's judgment?
Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, my judgment told me that when I received this invitation, as many members of Parliament and ministers do, I asked the Ethics Commissioner if it was appropriate for me to attend. This is an annual event that has taken place over a number of years where guest speakers are invited to meet the business community in Toronto, hosted by a particular law firm. Mr. Speaker, law firms don't tell the public who are on their client lists. Nothing about that event speaks to a particular file, a particular client, or particular litigation. This is an event, Mr. Speaker, to talk about our government's proud record in Atlantic Canada.
The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, this government should spend a little bit less time with its friends and a bit more time with its partners in the provinces. When it comes to health transfers, we can't say that the government has a good relationship with the provinces. We see a clear lack of Liberal leadership here and an unprecedented level of interference in provincial jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, when will the minister actually listen to her provincial counterparts and eliminate the conditions on the health transfers? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, today I met with 2 health ministers. That includes the Minister of Health from Quebec. Canadians are proud of their public health system, but they expect their government to ensure that the system is always there for them. The Canada Health Transfer will increase by over $1 billion next year to reach over $37 billion, and I will continue to meet with my provincial counterparts. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, yes, yesterday the federal minister said that she was having good discussions with her provincial counterparts, but at the same time in Quebec, the Minister of Health said that there hadn't been any conversations. And today, just an hour ago, the same minister has said that what's happening in health, it's very concerning, is very, very concerning. Mr. Speaker, the facts are the facts. The government is being paternalistic with the provinces and doesn't respect their jurisdiction. That goes against Canadian federalism. When will they respect their provincial counterparts and stop imposing health conditions? The Honourable Minister of Health.
I was pleased to meet not one but two of my provincial counterparts today in Ottawa to discuss with them the importance of health care in this country. I have had good discussions with all of my colleagues across the country. I respect their jurisdiction, but you know, Mr. Speaker, Canadians do well when all stakeholders collaborate. That includes every level of government that has a responsibility for health care. This will be necessary for Canadians to have the health and health care that they need and deserve.
Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
By breaking their promise and adopting Stephen Harper's cuts to health care, this government is letting Canadians down. But now the premiers are denouncing the lack of consultation and conservative approach that this Liberal government has adopted. They're also protesting the Liberals' decision to impose over $1 billion in federal cuts on the provinces next year alone. Wow. Will the federal government reverse these cuts to the provinces and agree to their simple request to sit down with the Prime Minister?
Yeah. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it's important that this House understands the facts clearly. There will be no cuts to health care. In fact, the Canada Health Transfer will grow next year. I look forward to very excellent conversations with my counterparts across the country. Canadians want a healthcare system that is there for them. All levels of government have a responsibility in that, and when we work together, we will find synergies and we will make sure Canadians have the healthcare that they need.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, that's hard to believe when the Prime Minister has been ignoring the province's request to meet since July. Now, the Liberals promised that they wouldn't make any changes without negotiating with the provinces, and in opposition, the Liberal health critic called the 50% cut to the health escalator walking away from Medicare. Whoa. But now in government, the Liberals have adopted that very reduction, unilaterally removed $36 billion from healthcare, and continue to ignore a request for a meeting. Can the Minister please explain how this is real change?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, the approach of this government to health care is fundamentally different from anything that we have seen in the last decade. The Prime Minister made it very clear to me that he wanted me to negotiate a new health accord with the provinces and territories. That's exactly what I'm in the process of doing. We will not only increase the Canada Health Transfer, but we will negotiate new investments in health. We'll make sure Canadians have the home care that they need. We'll make the transformations. I will do that in collaboration with my colleagues. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, Stephen Harper's cuts to health care have become the Liberal cuts to health care, and the provinces are furious. The Liberals claim that they want to negotiate in good faith with the provinces, but once in power, they've decided to unilaterally cut $36 billion, and they even want to impose a list of conditions on Quebec. Does the minister not understand that Canadians voted to get rid of Stephen Harper and his policies? The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this government is not making cuts to health care. I am actually curious as to how the New Democratic Party thinks that they would not have had to make drastic cuts when they said that they were going to deliver a balanced budget. This government is prepared to invest new money in health care. We're prepared to work with our counterparts across the country to invest in home care, to make sure Canadians have better access to mental health care, and I look forward to delivering a new health accord.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Once again, the government says one thing and does something else. All the provinces, and particularly Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia, have denounced this government's approach when it comes to the health transfer agreements. For Canadians in these provinces, it's déjà vu. This arrogant attitude, they remember it well, it was the Conservatives' attitude. How many provinces will have to oppose this government before they listen to reason and cancel these cuts? Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, I have already had very good discussions with my counterparts across the country. That includes all of the health ministers in every region of this country. We have always discussed what we need to improve our healthcare systems everywhere. Canadians expect that we will work together and that we work closely with the provinces and territories. We will improve our healthcare system for all Canadians.
Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we already have a Toronto minister responsible for Atlantic economic development. We have the possibility that a Toronto judge could take the Atlantic Canada spot on the Supreme Court. And now if you want to get in good with the Prime Minister's Atlantic kingpin, you have to get an invitation to a private reception in Toronto, literally being held on Toronto Street. So now the Fisheries Minister's secret event is billed Get the Atlantic Edge. So, Mr. Speaker, why does getting the Atlantic Edge have to mean dodgy, unethical cocktail parties in downtown Toronto?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, it won't surprise you that the exaggerated and fabricated beginning of that question around ethical challenges is exactly that, Mr. Speaker. The Commissioner, in writing, when I received the invitation, confirmed to me that it was appropriate for me to accept that invitation. The member knows very well that ministers and members of Parliament all the time attend events around the country. And, Mr. Speaker, the Atlantic Growth Strategy announced by my colleague, the Minister of Economic Development, in Prince Edward Island in July is something all of us are proud of, and I welcome an opportunity to talk about it.
Order. The member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to his ethical screen, perhaps the minister has misunderstood the definition of the word screen. Maybe he's thinking about an enormous screen door with great big holes in it, big enough for him and his friends to jump through. But I don't think that's what Canadians have in mind. So, Mr. Speaker, where is this minister's judgment?
Hear, hear. Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, all ministers and all members of our government have an ethical judgment that is entirely superior to that member's former party. And, Mr. Speaker, when we receive invitations like this, we proactively reach out to the Ethics Commissioner. Her office confirms that it is entirely appropriate for us to accept events like that. The member knows very well that that is the ethical and proper way to handle these sorts of situations. That's exactly what I did, and I'm sorry that he's so traumatized, Mr. Speaker, that our government is engaged in Atlantic Canada.
Order, order. Most members on all sides have the ability to sit here quietly and listen to things that are provocative from the other side. I'm asking that we all do that now, and let's listen to the member for Huron. Bruce.
Group 5 is the lobbying and PR wing of the law firm where the minister will be the guest of honor on Wednesday. They have a long list of clients, including Irving Oil and J.D. Irving. What a coup it must be for them to have the Prime Minister's Atlantic kingpin and trusted advisor. The problem is that the minister isn't supposed to have anything to do with the Irvings. That should include clinking glasses at fancy Toronto restaurants with lobbyists. How could the minister not see this blatant violation of his own ethics declaration?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, again, if the Ethics Commissioner in her judgment does not see any violation whatsoever, the honourable member should accept her judgment because, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we value her judgment with respect to ethics considerably more than that member's.
The honourable member for Huron, Bruce.
Well, with answers like that, I think the Fisheries Minister is going to get to know Justice Charbonneau and Gomery really quick and really well. The ethically challenged Fisheries Minister has had rules forced on him by the Ethics Commissioner, so he can't have any dealings with Irving. So what's he going to do on Wednesday? He's going to break every single rule the Ethics Commissioner told him not to do. 330 MPs in this House see the conflict. Why can't the minister?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, again, simply because the member fabricates and asserts a falsehood doesn't make it true. Mr. Speaker, I have received written confirmation from the Ethics Commissioner.
The Honourable Minister knows that we don't suggest that members fabricate falsehoods here in the House. I'm going to invite him. Perhaps we'll go on to the member for Barrie Springwater Oro-Medonte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadian history is littered with Liberals doing whatever they can to help out Liberal lobbyists. And they always have the same excuses. We followed the rules, they'll say. This is just us listening and consulting with people, they'll say. I was just doing this as an MP, not a minister, they'll say. But every time it's friends of the Liberal Party that get access, favors, and closed-door meetings. Mr. Speaker, I'll ask one more time, where is this member's judgment?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, my judgment is that it's important for Canadians to understand our government's commitment to growing the Atlantic economy. That's why, Mr. Speaker, when I received this invitation, I forwarded to the Ethics Commissioner to confirm that nothing inappropriate was the case with my attending the event. I received that confirmation, at which point I accepted the invitation. And, Mr. Speaker, to go to any group to talk about our government's commitment to growing the Atlantic economy, to welcoming new immigrants to Atlantic Canada, I'm proud to do so, and I'll take every opportunity I have to do exactly that.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Fisheries Minister accepted an invitation to participate in a private cocktail party organized by a major law firm. That wouldn't be a problem if only that firm didn't have links to the Irving family. And that wouldn't be a problem if only that firm didn't do lobbying for the Irving family. Mr. Speaker, it's a festival of conflicts of interest. How can the Minister of Fisheries accept to be the guest of honor at this reception? Where was his judgment? The Honourable Minister of Fisheries. Mr. Speaker, as I've said many times, under no circumstances was I in a situation of conflict of interest. That is exactly why I asked the Ethics Commissioner for her opinion before accepting the invitation, when she confirmed that it was appropriate for me to go to talk about the Atlantic Canada economy and our government's commitment to grow the Canadian economy with a group of leaders from the Toronto business community. It was a pleasure for me to accept that invitation.
Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, a report issued today confirms that Canada is not on track to achieve its 2020 emissions reduction goal. This dire prediction was reached even before the approval of a new LNG project emitting what some are calling a carbon bomb, emitting 10 million tons of CO2 a year. Canadians want action. So where are the promised investments in clean energy alternatives for northern communities? Where are the investments in energy-efficient housing? Where's the plan to deploy green infrastructure? We're running out of time.
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government understands that the environment and economy go together. I was very pleased to hear Rachel Notley, the Premier of Alberta, say with respect to yesterday's project approval, this is an important combination of sustainable economic growth while ensuring that you address environmental issues. I'd also like to refer to Brian Cochrane. He's a business manager for a union representing over 12,000 members in BC. He said the Pacific Northwest LNG's project environmental approval is very good news for BC members of the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 115 who are standing by to help build this important energy facility. Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Minister's Youth Council, maybe we should start thinking about what kind of planet we're leaving for those young people.
Mr. Speaker, torture is immoral, it doesn't work, and it goes against all of our international human rights commitments. And yet, the ministerial directive, which allows for the use of intelligence obtained by torture, is still in place under these Liberals. This practice is a stain on Canada's reputation, and it certainly goes against our values. Will the government finally repeal this directive, yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's clear that we do not, we're not in favor of these activities. And ministerial directives are there to protect Canadians' security as well as their rights and freedoms. Well, the directives are being reviewed and are subject to consultation, and the Parliamentary Committee is studying this and will be reviewing these directives.
Saxe Lund.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals claimed that Brookfield Relocation Services apologized to them. Yet today it was confirmed that no such apology was ever issued. As a matter of fact, all we got was more damning evidence. In a statement yesterday, Brookfield confirmed our assertion that Telford and Butts claimed expenses with no justification or receipts. These so-called personalized cash payouts need to be explained. Why did the Prime Minister sign off on these?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just in case nobody has heard the answer before, these relocation policies have been in place since the 1970s. They were most recently reviewed by the previous Conservative government, most recently in 2011. Our government recognizes that these policies need to be reviewed, and that's why our Prime Minister has asked the President of the Treasury Board to review the relocation policies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask that the Minister takes this seriously, please. The Prime Minister's friends were shamed into giving some of the money back, but everyone knows that a bank robber who returns part of the loot doesn't get away without repercussions. Telford and Butts occupy the most powerful, unelected positions in the government. They accepted money that now even they claim was unjustified. When did the Prime Minister do the right thing and explain why they were given it in the first place?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member has heard my response time and time again, and if she doesn't like my response, maybe she wants to hear it from Guy Giorno, former Chief of Staff to Stephen Harper. He says the Federal Relocation Program, which applies to hundreds of moves annually, including by employees of government, military, and RCMP, exists for a very good reason. He says the relocation process is run by an independent third party. The third party determines the actual cost according to the program criteria. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the government is finding excuse after excuse to defend the Prime Minister's friend and his Chief of Staff. Yesterday, they claimed in this House that the moving company had lied. But that is not the case. Mr. Speaker, my mother always said that if you have to constantly change your story, well, it's undoubtedly because you've done something wrong. Why is the Prime Minister unable to simply tell Canadians that his staff and his government have the bad habit of abusing taxpayer dollars? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said, this is a policy to reimburse moving costs that has existed since the 1970s. And the Conservative Party under Stephen Harper developed this policy. That is why the Prime Minister has asked the Treasury Board to review this policy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, not only the moving company did not lie, but we learned that some expenses were claimed without any receipts being submitted. We've said it before, but reimbursing expenses only after getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar doesn't make it acceptable. This Prime Minister and this government need to show respect for Canadian families and their money. Mr. Speaker, when will they stop spending without counting and stop defending the indefensible? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the opposition members don't want to hear the answer from me, maybe they can listen to Guy Giorno, former Chief of Staff. He said that the moving process is managed by an independent third party. The independent third party determines the real costs according to the program's criteria. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, when the Liberals came to power, they said that there would be an end to a lack of respect for workers. And yet, yesterday, they had the gall to vote against a ban on the use of scabs. Using scab workers flouts the right to bargaining and undermines labour relations. Why is the Liberal government turning its back on workers? Why is it refusing to protect the right to bargain? The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I can tell you, this is a government that respects workers and businesses and understands that collective bargaining works. And in most cases, by far, 95%, collective agreements have worked and there's no need for replacement workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, social housing is declining in Canada, and there are over 170,000 people on the wait list. A number of leaders in the housing sector are meeting in Toronto to launch a cry of alarm. The government has to do more, not less. Just to renovate the housing units in Toronto, we're talking about a $2.6 billion delay. Will the minister finally invest the money needed to renovate existing housing units, build new ones, and fix the problem with the long-term agreements? The Honourable Minister for Social Development. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'm very pleased to take this opportunity that my colleague gives me to underscore how committed this government is to the fight for social housing. We have invested over $2 billion in our government. That's a historic investment that will make a massive difference in the lives of hundreds of thousands of Canadians. And we have made tangible and major investments in collaboration with our partners, and that's what I'm going to announce tomorrow in Toronto.
Mr. Speaker, one of the most pressing issues in Davenport, my downtown West Toronto riding, is an urgent need for more affordable housing. Affordable housing options are needed for individuals and families whose incomes cannot keep up with the increasing cost of housing, for new Canadians looking to establish themselves near city services and supports, and for seniors who are looking to downsize but not move out of the neighbourhoods where they've lived most of their lives. Indeed, this need for affordable housing is a problem across the country. Could the minister responsible for housing update the House on what this government is doing to address this urgent need?
Good question. The Minister for Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to my colleague from Davenport for her question. This government is indeed re-establishing federal leadership in housing. Through Budget 2016, we have made a historic $2.3 billion investment for urgent housing needs, including almost $600 million to support social housing and $200 million to support seniors housing. In Toronto, this represents an additional housing investment of over $150 million. I am looking forward to participating tomorrow in the City of Toronto Housing Summit to help deliver tangible and real results for all families in Toronto and across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been a difficult year, Mr. Speaker, for hardworking Canadians since his finance minister came to office. Wages are remaining stagnant, taxes have gone up. In Ontario, hydro rates are skyrocketing. And what's the response from this government? Well, it's to introduce even more new taxes and increasing the costs on Canadian families. If taxpayers voted for change, Mr. Speaker, I don't think they anticipated they'd actually have to root for it in the seat cushions of their couches so that they could pay their bills. What is the Minister of Finance doing to help his own constituents in Ontario to struggle and pay these bills?
Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for a question. Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. We will take no lesson from the Conservative when it comes to growing the economy. They left us 10 years of unprecedented low growth in this country. What we've done, Mr. Speaker, and I think my colleague misunderstood, this government reduced taxes as the first bill that we passed in this House for 9 million Canadians. We then on to introduce the Canada Child Benefit, which benefit 9 families out of 10, Mr. Speaker. And then we introduced the Canada Pension Plan. We're going to enhance the Canada Pension Plan. Mr. Speaker, we're working for Canadian families and
Order. I know members are all enjoying the debate, but let's try to let one person speak at a time. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But you know, Mr. Speaker, they're actually compounding this problem they have by slowly eliminating the ability of Canadians to save. Think about it. Tax-free savings account, eliminating savings bonds, encouraging debt in the country. Just because the Liberals know how to spend doesn't mean that Canadians don't know how to save. Mr. Speaker, given the Liberals' apparent adversity to fiscal responsibility, I'm wondering if they're actually coming up with new legislation to just eliminate our ability to save at all.
Yeah. The Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind my colleague on the other side, the first thing we did, Mr. Speaker, was to reduce taxes for Canadians. We then went on to introduce the Canada Child Benefit. We're going to enhance Canada Pension Plan. Mr. Speaker, we're making historic investment in infrastructure in this country and innovation. That's what Canadian wants, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're going to deliver.
The member for South Surrey White Rock.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And speaking of infrastructure, last night the Liberals passed a motion that before making any decision on infrastructure spending, an analysis and new implementation plan would have to be developed regarding greenhouse gases. Now, Mr. Speaker, this motion means that all federal infrastructure projects are now on hold until they go through a not yet established analysis, and jobs that Canadians desperately need are not going to be created. Mr. Speaker, can the minister please tell this House how long communities will have to wait until this implementation plan is developed?
Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, we believe that economic growth and environmental sustainability go hand in hand, and I'm proud to say that we have approved more funding in the last year than the previous government did in 5 years combined under their leadership, Mr. Speaker. And we have approved 700 projects, and 60% of those projects are currently underway, creating jobs and opportunities for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for South Surrey White Rock. Order.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question, so I'm going to try it again. Mr. Speaker, communities are getting mixed signals. The minister has issued community infrastructure projects lists, and communities need to know where they stand. People need jobs, and they need them now. We need a clear answer. Will the Liberals implement the motion and create an implementation plan, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are delivering on our commitments as we speak. We approved 700 projects under public transit, under water, wastewater infrastructure, and those projects, vast majority of them are currently underway, creating opportunity. It was the previous government that failed to invest in the infrastructure, and that is why when you talk to mayors, when you talk to provincial leaders, they agree with us and they support our plan, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Chief Electoral Officer recommended limiting the length of election campaigns. Well, it just so happens that I have introduced a bill to cap the election period at 46 days. In the last election, Stephen Harper doubled spending limits by extending the election to 11 long weeks. This cost the taxpayer $440 million. Canadians want to remove the influence of money and attack ads from our elections. So, will the Liberals support my bill to limit the length of elections?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member opposite for his work on this. The government is anxious to work with him to undo many of the changes that happened in the Unfair Elections Act, and also to specifically look at making sure that both the length of elections and the rules are as fair as possible for everyone. And I also want to say that we are very acutely listening to the Chief Electoral Officer's comments on the need to modernize our system, the need to improve it and to bring it into the 21st century. I know the party opposite's working hard with us to do that. I hope all members in the House will work with us on this process.
Member from Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Yesterday, the Union of BC Municipalities called on this government to deal with abandoned vessels. Earlier this year, I introduced Bill C-219, which creates a federal responsibility for dealing with these vessels, which are a black mark on our local environment and economy. We need to stop passing the buck to local governments. We need federal leadership. Will the government support my bill and get to work cleaning up abandoned vessels?
Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our government is committed to protecting Canada's marine and coastal areas. We are working with our partners to develop options to address the issue of abandoned vessels and wrecks that can pose environmental and safety risks and cause local economic harm. And we are proud to support the private member's motion put forward by the member for South Shore St. Margaret's on this important subject. This is a first step in the right direction. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, the clock is ticking. In Alberta, the forest industry employs over 19,000 people, the majority of which are in my riding of Yellowhead. My constituents and the forest industry deserves to know what the future will be. We cannot afford another drastic hit. There's no time to waste. Too many jobs are at stake. Will the minister do her job and ensure that the deal is signed with the United States by the deadline of October 12th? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question. Let me assure him that the minister is doing her job. I remind him that the agreement expired on the previous government's watch. We have, and they did nothing to start negotiations. We have, in contrast to that approach, been intensely involved in negotiations right from the beginning. We are continuing to work hard on this. We appreciate the compliment given to us by the honourable member from Caribou Prince George, who said, and I quote, "I can appreciate that there's been a considerable amount of work done on this point by both Global Affairs and the minister."
Hear, hear. The member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, forestry workers and their families across Canada are worried about their futures. This is because the Liberals have failed to secure a new softwood lumber agreement with the United States. Almost 400,000 men and women are at risk of losing their jobs come October, and all the Trade Minister has offered so far are poor excuses and lack of action. After a year of inaction by the Trade Minister, will the Prime Minister finally take action, call President Obama, and get a deal to protect Canadian jobs?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for his question. As the honourable member full well knows, our negotiating team has been involved in this file right from the beginning, Mr. Speaker. They are in constant contact with their American counterparts, and they are in constant contact with representatives from the industry across the country, with workers from across the country, as well as all the provincial governments. BC Premier Christy Clark, Mr. Speaker, said, and I quote, "I've got to give her credit about the minister. She's worked day and night to try to resolve this. It's been her central focus for several months. Thank you, Mr. Speaker."
The honourable member for Beaupré-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, I certainly hope that we will finally get an answer instead of the Liberal broken record. The softwood lumber agreement is essential, and a bad one could hurt 400,000 workers and their families across the country. This government gives us the impression that it does not care about jobs, the jobs that could be lost in Quebec. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberal government ratify the agreement, or will it continue to take selfies to have Canadians believe that it's working? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I would like to tell you about what other people are saying about our approach. The Quebec Employers Association talked about the attention that we are paying to defending the Quebec forestry industry. And the Quebec Forestry Council is happy with our position on the Quebec forest industry. The Unifor spokesperson commended the efforts of our government. It is just the opposition that does not recognize the work that we are doing to protect Quebec and Canadian workers.
Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that access to education for Canadian youth is an essential part of building a brighter and more prosperous future for Canada. Yet far too many young people face financial barriers to accessing post-secondary education. Could the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour please update this House on how the government is helping young Canadians access higher learning?
The Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member from Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge. Post-secondary education must remain affordable and accessible. That's why we invested $1.53 billion over the next 5 years for the middle-class Canadians. As of August 1st, we increased grants by 50%. That will benefit 363,000 students. We must also remember that the previous Harper government froze Canada's student grants since 2009, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, on Friday in Winnipeg, the Minister of Veterans Affairs hinted that veterans would have to wait a long time still before having a response on the decision concerning a lifelong disability pension. Clearly, this government broke its campaign promises. The minister also betrayed the solemn commitment that its party made to veterans by hauling them back into court. Mr. Speaker, when will this minister admit that he broke his promises to veterans?
Mr. Speaker, our government acknowledges the significant contributions of veterans and Canadian Armed Forces members and what they have given to this country in protecting our peace and security. Our sacred obligation to those members is outlined in our mandate letter from the Prime Minister. We remain committed to each and every line item in that, including an option for a lifetime pension. We delivered greatly in Budget 2016, increasing financial security to veterans and their families. We'll continue to work forward aggressively on this file.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The flagship of our Quebec and Canadian economy, Bombardier, is facing numerous challenges, and visibly the aerospace sector is not a priority for the Liberals. The Quebec government has invested its share, but we still don't know what the federal government intends to do. Will the federal government finally stop studying, support the growth of the aerospace sector, protect our good jobs, and support Bombardier?
For innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for the question. As the member opposite knows, we've been very concerned about this sector. We understand the importance of this sector to our Canadian economy. It employs over 200,000 people, good quality jobs, and it contributes to our GDP, $28 billion. That is why we're working with the solution with the company to make sure that the company succeeds, the sector succeeds, and to make sure we have good quality jobs here in Canada, to make sure we invest in R&D, and we're going to make sure that we continue to work with the company on a meaningful solution.
The Honourable Member for St. John South, Mount Pearl.
Mr. Speaker, I grew up in Labrador. The settlement of residential schools is an issue that's close to my heart. Residential schools represent one of our province's and one of our country's darkest chapters. Meaningful reconciliation must be a top priority of our government. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs update this House on the government's efforts to settle the Newfoundland and Labrador residential school lawsuit?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for his support and his advocacy on this issue. In February, we negotiated a $50 million settlement for survivors of residential schools in Newfoundland and Labrador. This week, we welcome Justice Stack's ruling in favour of the negotiated settlement. All parties can now move forward with the implementation of the agreement, including the extremely important work of commemoration, healing, and closure for survivors. Negotiation rather than litigation remains our government's preferred method of advancing reconciliation.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Chair of the Cabinet Committee on Litigation Management is headlining an exclusive event on the taxpayer's dime for a law firm whose clients are people for whom the Minister has an ethics stream and is being co-hosted by a lobbyist firm whose senior VP is the National Co-Chair of the Liberal Party of Canada. Mr. Speaker, the Minister's mandate letter says that upholding ethics standards is an obligation that is not fully discharged by simply acting within the law.
Exactly.
Is the Minister upholding this standard?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, yes, I am.
Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly of Quebec is unanimous. Sovereigntists and federalists alike are sending a clear message. Healthcare is an exclusive jurisdiction of Quebec, and it is not up to Ottawa to decide how Quebec will manage its money. Instead of imposing the unilateral cuts of the Conservatives with NDP conditions, will the minister maintain the 6% increase in transfers with no strings attached, as the National Assembly is calling for unanimously? The Honourable.
Monsieur le Président, nous savons que les provinces et les territoires sont en première ligne en offrant d'excellents soins et qu'ils connaissent les domaines à améliorer. Mais c'est très important que nous travaillons ensemble et le transfert canadien en santé va croître de plus d'1 milliard de dollars l'an prochain pour atteindre...
Order. Alors.
Order. Apparently there's a problem with the interpretation. It seems to be working, so I would ask the Minister to start her answer again, please. It is important that everyone hears this, that the Canada Health Transfer will increase by over $1 billion next year to total over $37 billion. We pledge to be a good partner in working with the provinces and territories. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the nurses in Quebec are worried. Yesterday, their president said that diminishing the healthcare transfers would put the Quebec healthcare system into deep trouble by slashing services that Quebec patients need. I don't want any figures, but yes or no, can the Minister of Health tell us whether she will maintain the transfers at 6% with no strings attached, as the Quebec nurses are calling for? Just a yes or a no. The Honourable Minister of Health.
To point out that nurses across Canada have supported the approach of our government towards our discussions on the health accord. In fact, they have said that we must drive innovation, we must work together, we must make sure that new money puts healthcare on the road to long-term sustainability. The Canadian Nurses Association has supported this. Today we heard from the Canadian Medical Association, who also agreed that the federal government needs to be a good partner with the provinces and territories and needs to collaborate for healthcare for all Canadians.
I believe the Honourable Member for Portage-Lisgar has the usual Thursday question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I do, and I don't want to preempt what the government will be enlightening us on, but I do understand that we will be possibly debating the Paris Accord next week, which we do welcome. We do hope that the government will pay that same important attention when they do decide, if they decide to send Canadian men and women in harm's way, that they will also take the time to take those important decisions. What the government is proposing for the rest of this week and for next week. Thank you.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon, we are continuing our study of the motion of the New Democratic Party. Tomorrow, we will resume our study of Bill C-22 on the Committee of Parliamentarians on National Security.
Tomorrow will be the final day of debate at second reading. I thank the opposition for their cooperation on this matter. Mr. Speaker, next week we will debate a motion for the ratification of the Paris Agreement. Like my colleague mentioned, I anticipate a very robust debate as there is much interest by honourable members.